The search for the self. Have you ever asked yourself, who am I really? Are you the one thinking or the one listening to those thoughts? The truth is, science has tried to find the self in the brain, but they found nothing. There is no little guy inside your brain, no CEO sitting in your head making decisions. Instead, they discovered an empty space, a vast and mysterious void where all your thoughts, emotions, and sensations arise and dissolve. It's like trying to find the leader of a jazz improv session. There is no conductor. This is the #1 mistake most people make during meditation. 99% of people who hear this explanation say that it changed their understanding of the observer forever. The inner commentator versus the observer. The confusion happens when we think that the inner commentator is the observer. Let's separate them. The inner commentator has 3 modes. Narrative mode, what am I doing? Who am I? Critic mode, I'm not good enough, I'm failing. Hype mode, I did great, I'm amazing. The inner commentator observes your actions and thoughts, then comments on them. It guides you during meditation, tells you whether you are doing well or poorly, criticizes you, and reassures you. It's obsessed with defining you, but its definitions are as fleeting and inconsistent as the thoughts that fuel it. The reason why it's so easy to confuse it with the observer is that the inner commentator also feels like a separate, peaceful entity. It's a distant voice that always has something to say. The true observer. On the other hand, the observer is always silent. It simply watches. It doesn't think. It just watches, taking in all the information without reacting to it. The observer sees the inner commentator, but doesn't intervene because it doesn't need to. It knows that none of it defines you. If you sit with the observer long enough, during deep meditation or moments of complete stillness, you'll notice something amazing. The observer isn't even yours. The same awareness that watches your thoughts is the same awareness watching mine, your neighbors, a monk's in a Himalayan cave, or even someone zoning out on a subway in Tokyo. What changes is the content, the thoughts, emotions, and experiences passing through. But the space of awareness is the same, universal, and beyond individuality. The nature of the observer. When you strip away the noise, you realize that the person you are arguing with or falling in love with is, at their core, animated by the same awareness that animates you. The inner commentator is rooted in the mind, meaning it is shaped by your conditioning, your upbringing, society's fears, desires, and insecurities. It's a product of your past, constantly recycling old patterns and projecting them onto your present and future. But if you want to know the real observer, you have to look elsewhere. Look for it in the timeless. It exists purely in the present moment, not tangled up in the past or worried about the future. While the inner commentator speaks, the observer listens. While the inner commentator analyzes, the observer simply is. The eternal witness. As the Bhagavad Gita says, you are the eternal witness. Eckhart Tolle would call you conscious presence. Though your inner skeptic might roll its eyes, the more you tune into the observer, the more this makes sense. The observer is the only part of you that never changes. Everything else about you has shifted over time. Your personality, your body, your likes and dislikes, even your identity. 10 years ago, you were a completely different person in every measurable way. But the observer remains the same. The you that noticed the world when you were 5 is the same you noticing it now. The infinite and the divine. This isn't just a mental trick, it's profound. It's the same awareness that watched the universe being born, the same stillness that stars reflect in their silence. You've been here all along. The observer is not some modern mindfulness concept. It's ancient and has been explored by some of the greatest thinkers in history. Great minds like Einstein, quantum physicists, and ancient mystics have pointed to the same thing. The roots of the observer can be traced back to the Upanishads, some of the oldest spiritual texts, where they describe Atman, the eternal self, as the silent witness to all experiences. Feedback and the human mind. The human mind has the ability to step outside of life and react to it. The mind has something resembling a feedback system, a term used in communication engineering for automation. When you begin identifying as the observer, you'll realize your thoughts are like background noise in a coffee shop. Make the observer your default mode. The more you notice the observer in action, the more natural it becomes. It's like learning to ride a bike or mastering the art of using a self-checkout machine without panicking. The more you do it, the less effort it takes. Quiet sitting and meditation. There's nothing unnatural about long periods of quiet sitting. Cats do it. Even dogs and other nervous animals do it. So-called primitive peoples do it in almost all nations. The art of being still is hardest for those with a sensitive intellect who cannot help but predict the future and remain in constant activity to forestall it. But it seems that to be incapable of sitting and watching with the mind completely at rest is to be incapable of experiencing the world to the fullest. To reach the observer, one finds a place of no mind, a place where you don't have to do anything special other than observe. Surrendering to the void. The observer is not some mystical being that only meditators with man buns can access. In Buddhism, the four principal activities of man, walking, standing, sitting, and lying, are called the four dignities, as they are the postures assumed by the Buddha nature in its human body. You don't need to worry about tomorrow. Every moment, think only of today and this hour. People are afraid to forget their minds, fearing they will fall through the void with nothing to cling to. They don't know that the void is not really emptiness, but the true realm of the divine. It cannot be sought or understood by wisdom or knowledge, explained by words or reached by merit. Yet, to surrender to this seeming abyss is to awaken, dissolve into the infinite, and realize you were never separate to begin with. The void is not emptiness, but the womb of all things, the source from which thought, form, and time itself arise. If this video changed the way you think about yourself, leave a comment. Have you ever experienced a moment where you were simply the observer? Share your story. If you want to explore more about consciousness and the mind, hit the subscribe button now. Remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next video.